With all the strides revealed for the Premium Collection 2020, it's once again time to see which are the winners and who are the losers. Stand up, Vanguard! Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another video on the channel, and today we're gonna dive into the Premium Collection set for this year, Premium Collection 2020. And one of those videos we're gonna tackle today is which clans or which strides are the winners and which strides are the losers. We did this last year when Premium Collection 2019 dropped, so we're once again doing it for this year for Premium Collection 2020. And for anybody that isn't familiar with the setup of this video, I'm gonna split all the clans or all the strides up into 4 categories. We have the absolute winners. These are going to be meta defining strides which are incredibly powerful or have a lot of future potential. Then below that we have the winners categories. These are just pretty solid strides which will probably be good, might not be top tier, but they will give their clan a significant boost. Then below that we've got the in-betweener slot. These are basically strides which are hard to gauge. These could potentially be very strong cards, but are either very tricky to understand or have a lot of things going on, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're good. But at the same time, these cards are probably not bad. They aren't really useless per se, probably have more flaws to them than to be a outright winner or an absolute winner, because they need to figure things out or they are just lacking that bit of consistency or the support they need to make their full potential shine through. And then below that we of course got the losers category, and these are for cards or for strides that are just plain bad. They don't work for their clan or their skills themselves just don't work. So with that said, let's jump right into the first strides, and we're gonna go per order, per nation, per clan that were introduced in the series. So we're gonna of course start with United Sanctuary, and the first clan is Royal Paladin. Royal Paladin got Holy Dragon, Crystal Luster Dragon, as you can see here with the skill. I'm not gonna go over all the skills of these strides as you're probably already aware of that, and if I go too in depth then this video would be way too long. So I'm just gonna pass by over some pointers of why I gave these cards a certain rating, and you can analyze that with the skill itself if it's justified or you can agree with that. So we have Crystal Luster Dragon. This for me is a very obvious winner card. It's an incredibly powerful card as it's super generic. This card can be utilized in whatever archetype or whatever playstyle a certain deck might have, and it is very suitable for a standard plus build. But not only that, the reason why it's mainly a winner is its future potential. This thing will only become stronger the more and more grade 3 boss units we are gonna get in standard, as this thing is just so generic and will always work with grade 3s, and we're always going to get new grade 3 boss units. So Crystal Luster Dragon is definitely a winner for me. Then for Royal Paladin, we dive into the Oracle Think Tank stride as we have Sterling Witch Momo, the new restander for Oracle Think Tank. And this is an absolute winners card. This is exactly what Oracle Think Tank needed. They needed an aggressive first stride. They lost their aggressive first stride once Ichikishima got banned, and now they actually have something that's not ban worthy, as this is a fair super aggressive card. But besides that downgrade, this card is insanely good for Oracle Think Tank. For once, the discard might sound heavy, but actually this is the perfect thing for Oracle Think Tank. Oracle Think Tank draws an insane amount of cards, but they don't really do anything with it. And the defensive capability of those extra cards don't really weigh up too much in premium, as your opponent is probably gonna rip your hand to shreds anyways, so you're not actually getting value out of those cards. So being able to discard them for extra power and a potential restand is actually something Oracle Think Tank could use. But not only that, this restand works perfectly in the whole thing of Oracle Think Tank. Oracle Think Tank can manipulate the top deck. So that means the first Vanguard swing will most likely hit a trigger, and in Oracle Think Tank's case, a critical trigger. Which means your Vanguard will swing twice with extra power and those extra criticals, which is really good for a restand, as most other clans need to bet or hope they get a critical trigger in their drive check. So yeah, this stride has a lot of options and probably will only get better and and better the more support Oracle Think Tank gets, because it works really nicely with the whole gimmick of Oracle Think Tank with the top deck manipulation and the extra draw engine they got. So yeah, this card, an absolute winner in my opinion. Then next up, we go into the one for Angel Feathers, as we have Holy Seraph Basasael. And this is a very obvious loser card for me. Once again, Angel Feathers got a stall card, which they do not need. This card is way too slow. It's a nice gimmick and it's an interesting skill, but it just doesn't work in Premium, where the game is way too fast. And that's even besides the whole issue what's going on right now in the community, as we're gonna address that in some future videos. But just in a generic sense, this card is just way too slow and you don't get the value of it. So it's very obvious that it's a loser. It's mainly a gimmicky card, and that's about it. Then followed by Angel Feathers, we're gonna dive into the one for Shadow Paladin, which is Dark Dragon Chain Rancor Dragon. And this is basically a carbon copy of the Royal Paladin Stride. So it's, for me, once again, a winner's card. This card is really, really solid. It basically has the same arguments as for the Royal Paladin Stride. It's very accessible. It works as a standard plus engine. It allows you to manipulate all kinds of old strategies as well with the Great Free Boss unit and empower those cards to basically become a stride unit as well. But also the future potential of this card is unlimited. So yeah, it's definitely a winner's card for me, because this card is already pretty solid on its own right, but it can only become better and better the more support Shadow Paladin is going to get. Next up, we've got the stride for Gold Paladin, which is Golden Dragon Blambent Dragon. And this is a very interesting stride, as it is a stride that doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't cost you Counterblast, it doesn't cost you Soul Blast. It just asks you to turn 2 cards, 2 rear guards to the bottom of your deck, you draw 2 new cards, and you call 2 new cards from your hand. This is really interesting, as it's the first stride for Gold Paladin that directly calls cards from the hand instead of the top X cards from deck. This isn't per se a stronger card than something like a Spare Cross. This doesn't allow you to Superior Right, and it's also not per se stronger as something like a Glorious Rain or an Ultima or something like that. But what is interesting about this card is that it allows you to do certain plays and combos which aren't accessible to Gold Paladin before this stride, as it doesn't cost you Counterblast. So if your opponent is damage denying you, you can go into this thing. You don't have to have Unite, so you can still activate this skill. And what also is pretty nice about this card is that it allows you to interact and incorporate standard cards for Gold Paladin within the Premium landscape, because a lot of the powerful cards for Gold Paladin will activate them from hand, like Stackromore and Dindrain, which opens up a lot of potential. If everything together, I think it's a good in-betweeners card. As I explained, it's not an outright stronger stride that Gold Paladin already has access to. It's basically a similar stride, but a little bit different, but different enough that it might be useful in certain situations. We dive into the last clan for the United Sanctuary Nation, and that is Genesis with Hero Deity of Zenith, Marduk. And yeah, I don't know what's up with Bushiroad and Genesis strides, but I tried to make them unnecessarily overcomplicated. This was the same thing with last year with the whole Armor stride, which had a lot of effects, but was way too complicated to actually get the value out of that card, as it didn't really synergize with most of what the clan wants to do. And honestly, this is the same case for Marduk. It has a lot of fluff with it, and the fact that you can stride during the battle phase, which is interesting and could allow you to make a standard plus build. But the problem is that this stride is way too overcosted for what it's trying to do. And even within this particular set, other clans can do what this card does way better, way easier, and way cheaper. And the fact that you need to Soul Blast so many cards in a clan that already is utilizing a lot of Soul for a lot of cost, especially with the Standard Plus variants with Valkyrian and with Himiko, I do not see this card actually be viable or actually pretty good. And for that, I honestly think this is a loser's card. This is not a very strong card because it's way too overcosted for such a small increment of value. Then if we dive into the Dragon Empire, we start off with Kagero, and they got Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon Zen Bust Dragon. And this was the stride revealed by WCC Kai. And I'm honestly not really that hype about this card. It's basically a cheap, free field retire. The power you gain to units is pretty whatever, as you're probably not going to call a lot of great frees anyways, and if you do, your hand is probably not that great, so it's a bit awkward in some scenarios. It fills in a niche for Kagero. If they cannot retire the whole field and their blaze units do not activate, then this is a good option for Kagero to have. But that's basically what this card is. It's just another option. It's a tech card that can slot into the G zone for certain specific situations. So for that, I think it's an in-betweener stride. It's not a winner in my opinion, because it's not gonna win you outright games, or it's not gonna accelerate Kagero to a new level of competitivity. But it's also not a loser, because its card does something. Then from Kagero, we go to Nubatama with Rikudo, Demonic Dragon, Yakumeso, and this card, in my opinion, is an absolute winner's card. This card is pretty damn insane, if I'm gonna be very honest with you guys. And the fact that it gives multi-attack, extra draws, because it's a +2. You bounce your field to your hand and then you can recall. This means you have the repurposable on-place effects, just like we have in Standard with the whole Hanzo build. But not only that, this is during the battle phase, so certain on-place effects might become even stronger because you utilize them during the battle phase. This might not be the strongest stride of all, but in combination with Nubatama, this is really good, because this is a solid first stride, but it also fills in a gap that opened up once we got the limit on Jamiya Kongo and Rinne in the same deck. This card can fill that gap in as the substitute for Rinne for that scenario, because you're gonna attack 5 times that turn. If you did that on a Jamiya Kongo turn, when your opponent's hand size will shrink to 6 or 4, you probably kill them that turn, and you get a lot of value while you're doing this. Also, this card allows you to be very aggressive in the early game, and if your opponent cannot retire your field, you can just bounce back those cards to hand and rebuild a correct field out of nowhere, which is really good. And from Nubatama, we go into Tachikaze, and Tachikaze got Destruction Tyrant, Gunterraptor. And Gunterraptor is basically a stride version of Anger Blader. And for me, this is a winner's card. It's pretty damn strong, but it's not as strong as Anger Blader was in Standard. The reason for that is you cannot do this on your opponent while they are grade free. You can only do this when this strides. So this is a much slower card. It also gives less power. It does allow you to set up things more efficiently, but it will be less oppressive than Anger Blader was. It is still a very solid stride, and definitely a very good first stride, which you then can follow up with into a Dogma. It's certainly a very solid stride and should not be underestimated, as this is a really strong card. Then from the Tachikaze stride, we go to the one from Murakumo, which is Ambush Demon Stealth Beast no Dio. And yeah, everybody knows it. This is an absolute winner's card. This card is insane. It just outright kills your opponent. You got a superior stride while your opponent's grade 2. You hit with insane numbers because of the whole Yuga plays, and then you also have the multi-attack for free. Yeah, I don't know what Bushiroad was thinking when they came up with this card, but yeah, absolute winners. No problem with that one there. Then from Murakumo, we go to Narukami, and Narukami got Conquering Supreme Dragon, Stunverse Dragon. Let me tell you, this card is insane. This card fixes a lot of problems for Narukami that they had in Premium. And for that, this is an absolute winner's card, because this card could potentially bring and revive Narukami from the depths of irrelevancy all the way up to top tier status. Because this card is that strong. If your opponent is not playing around this card, they can just outright lose the game if this card activates its full potential at first stride. But even if that's not the case, the fact that the game will progress after that point, you start to get some insane value of this card. You can just stride into this thing repeatedly and just do some interesting whammy things. Also, what's interesting is that this card interacts really nicely with the Cray Elemental engine and with the Barrigirin, as you can stride into this thing, use its effect, then you're gonna stride out in your main phase, you're at Barrigirin, and then you can use Barrigirin's ability to then stride the face-up Storm Elemental Cyclone that you flipped up with the Stunverse, and then stride into that thing and have some strong columns and potential multi-attacking, while you destroyed your opponent's field and potentially cards from their hand. Yeah, there's a lot of strong options here. Then from the Dragon Empire, we go into the Stargate zone, and we've got the one for Dimension Police, which is Heatwave Beast Gale Maglas, the stride that was revealed by none other than Different Fight. And in my honest opinion, this is a really good stride. We've now actually got a defensive stride that's also offensive, but allows for a more stall kind of tactics. This is actually a type of defensive card that Angel Feathers need. Not just random healing or expanding your damage zone, which is on itself is way too slow, but this actually increases the defensive capability of your deck to some insane levels while also applying a lot of pressure. So this is for me honestly a winner's card. Just right at the bat, without analyzing all the intricate combos and what you can do, just the raw value of this card makes it a winner's card. No question asked. It could potentially be an absolute winner's card, but that is something we have to wait and see over the course of a few months when we can see Dimension Police in action, and as well as the new support wave that's coming right around the corner with Silver Dust Blaze as well. Then from Dimension Police, we dive into Nova Grappler, and we've got Heteromorphic Dragon King Azabdabulk. And yeah, I'm not gonna talk a lot about this card. This card is an absolute loser card. It's way too weak for a Nova Grappler stride. Even for a standard plus build variant, this is laughable. I don't know what they were thinking to make this kind of card while they gave Murakumo Nuadayo. What were they thinking? Then last clan for the Stargate Nation, we've got the one for Link Joker, that's Nebula Dragon Variant Dragon. And this is a very interesting stride, as this is what we speculated for a long time, that we might get Marker Destruction, and we actually get the type of skill. Not only for premium, we have to wait to see if we ever get it in standard, don't know if that's the case, but this is a very interesting stride. The only problem is that it's dependent on your opponent how much value you're going to get out of this stride, and if it's actually worth it to go into this thing, because it doesn't interact or support any Link Joker playstyle whatsoever, but at the same time, it does disrupt your opponent's playstyle or their strategy. If you're up against a clan that is accelerating their force markers, or getting a lot of axle circles, or getting a lot of protect markers, then this thing can disrupt those playstyles quite effectively. Also against protect, this can be a really solid card because it not only removes one card from your opponent's hands, it is actually a perfect card that you're removing, and because you're going into with an extra crit and extra power, it makes it even tougher for your opponent to guard against this particular attack if they do not have another normal Sentinel card in their hand. So there are interesting interactions, and I think this is going to be a tech card in the G-Zone and actually a primary engine or a primary focus. So for that, I think it's an in-betweener card because it's not terrible. It definitely has a niche to fill in Link Joker, which might actually win some games in particular situations or for certain matchups. Then from the Stargate Nation, we go into the Dark Zone, and we start off with Spike Brothers with great hero villain Verminus. And Verminus is once again, just like Genesis, a very complicated stride, which has a lot of potential and a lot of combo potential. But because it's such a hard card to gauge, I can only give it the in-betweener status right now, because there is not an outright broken combo or a really strong combo that makes the clan better than it already was, with the already strong standard plus build they had, with all the aggressive cards, and then of course the whole GBA turbo build that's already out there. So I'm not sure if this card makes the deck even better in some capacity. It could be that Spike Brothers will not utilize this card at all, or there will be a separate build that isn't better per se than the already existing build. So for that, I'm gonna keep it in the in-betweeners status, and it might jump up to a winners category if we get some better results in the coming months when Spike Brother players actually start to figure this card out and make some waves in the competitive scene. Then for Spike Brothers, we get to Dark Regulars, and Dark Regulars got Upheaval Chief Galvant. And yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I'm not too excited about this card. It's probably a loser's card for me. I'm gonna give it the loser status because you randomly soul charge an X amount of cards here, and you do not know what you get, what type of value you're going to get. You get some draws, you get some guard restrict, and that's about it. You don't really have a lot to say in the matter here for what the card does. So I don't think it's actually a good card at all for Dark Regulars, because the blindly soul charging thing is basically a thing of the past. They are now starting to soul charge precisely certain cards because they need specific cards to keep in their deck for cards like the Gastille Stride. If they accidentally soul charge their target for a Gastille, what you're gonna do? The only thing that they can then rely on is on a restender that shuffles every trigger back into the deck if they were lucky and they soul charge a surplus of triggers in the early game. But yeah, besides that, I don't believe that this card is actually very valuable to run in the G-Zone with already the strong stride that Dark Raiders got access to. So that basically leaves it to be a losers category for me. Then from Dark Raiders we go into the Pale Moon stride, which is Midair Megatrake Yvette. And Yvette is a really interesting stride because it's a Magia stride that enables multi-attack but also generates an Axle Circle. This is the first stride that we've got that actually generates markers, which is really interesting. I thought we were going to get this way sooner and even with more strides, but this is the only stride that does that. And what's interesting and what makes this card really good, and for me a winner's card, is that it combines and interacts really nicely with the old stride from the Premium Collection 2019, as we can go into the Dark Side Mega Lord or something, the Dark Side Princess stride that can attack, then go into the G-Zone, then you stride into another Magia stride, which can be this stride, and we can call the Dark Lord stride to the field, so we have some extra multi-attack swing with the extra Vanguard swing, but then also this stride, Yvette, can then make even more attacks, which is pretty interesting and can give you a lot of advantage. But the only reason why I'm not putting it into the absolute winners category is that Pale Moon already got another Magia stride, which is in some regards better, and that's the Harry promo stride. But I do not think that this card is a worse option or a bad option because the Harry stride exists. For one, that's a promo, you might not have access to that card, and this new stride is way easier to get access to. But also there are enough differences between those two strides that there are scenarios where the Harry stride might be better, but there are definitely scenarios where the Yvette stride might be better because you have a different type of multi-attacking and you have the extra axle marker you're generating. So it's unclear which will be better and how things will play out. And also don't forget the Yvette stride is a free costed card. It doesn't cost you counterblast. So the entire combo is counterblast free. With the Harry stride, that's not the case. It will cost you counterblast. So that can be a major factor here. Now with Pale Moon done, we dive into the last clan for the Dark Zone, and that's of course Gear Chronicle, my boy. And they got Interdimensional Dragon, Grog Rock Dragon. And Grog Rock Dragon, yeah, this beauty is something. It's something, alright. This is obviously an absolute winners category for me. Am I biased? Probably. But it's my show, so I can do and say whatever I want, and if I want to put it in the absolute winners category, hell damn, I'm gonna do that. But I'm of course not just gonna do that because it's the Gear Chronicle stride, because I didn't do that last year with the Time Leap stride, and I am proclaiming myself as Mr. Time Leap, so you would assume that I will put that in the absolute winners category last year, but I didn't. And the reason why I'm putting this card into the absolute winners category is because this card could actually physically bring back Gear Chronicle in Premium as a meta contender, as this is the perfect combination of the old GR playstyle and the old GR support cards and the new standard support cards, as it fuses those two playstyles perfectly together. We can do so many different combos, so many different interactions, and not only that, this card will only become stronger the more and more support Gear Chronicles gets in standard, which is insane. The possibilities are endless, and I made a whole video talking about that, so links on top, and check that video out if you haven't, because this card is amazing. Now with the Dark Zone done, we're gonna go into Mega Lanica, and for Mega Lanica, we're gonna start off with the Grand Blue stride, as we've got White Legion Sailing Ship Bad Bounty stride for Grand Blue that is very interesting, as they got a restender in the same likes as the old Next Stage ability, and this was also the stride revealed by Solemn Vanguard. And this is for me obviously a winner stride. This is a very solid stride. It is something that Grand Blue never did before, and it fixes some matchups for them that are really annoying to deal with, because now they have a Vanguard focused playstyle. Grand Blue in the past was mainly rearguard centric, but now they finally got a stride that is more Vanguard focused. And what's also awesome about this stride itself is that it's also, just like Gear Chronicle, Royal Paladin, Shadow Paladin, it has future potential because your right targets are endless, and the more support they're gonna get, the more right targets they might get for their restand effect. So this could be even stronger when we get the new Rummy Labyrinth set with the Night Rose VR. So I'm very interested where this stride might go in the future, but for now it's definitely a winner's card. It's not insanely powerful or broken that it will make Granblue even stronger than it already is, but it definitely fixed certain matchups and might win them a bit more games than they usually did in the past. And from Granblue we dive into Bermuda Triangle, and Bermuda Triangle got valuable verve Vederica. And Vederica is basically the Highlander stride for Bermuda Triangle. But the problem is, this stride isn't good. The Highlander build, especially in Premium, is not solid enough to make it a strong deck. And the payout of this particular stride isn't good enough to outweigh those issues you might have by piloting a Highlander deck. To make a Highlander deck viable, you need a lot of incentive or a lot of powerful skills that will activate to make that inconsistent pile of cards worth it to play. And the problem with this particular stride is that it also looks at your triggers, and all those triggers need to be different. If that wasn't the case, this card might have been playable, but now it's a loser's card, which is really, really bad. Then from Bermuda Triangle, we go to Aquaforce, and Aquaforce got Blue Storm, Steel Dragon, Jumbo Dragon. And Jumbo Dragon, oh boy, this card is definitely an absolute winner for me. At first glance, I didn't really like this card. I thought it was really bad, but once I started analyzing the card more in-depthly, I started realizing how insanely strong this card actually was. This card is basically very similar to the Tachikaze stride, but the only difference here is that the card actually pluses you. So it's a card that pluses you, gives you field retire, it resends your board, and it swings in with a lot of attacks. And it isn't piece reliant, which is the biggest problem for Aquaforce. So this is a very solid first try to just pressure your opponent, get a lot of value, and then finish it up next turn with a strong stride that could be Valios, it could be Alexandros, it could be your Megiddo stride, whatever. This card sets that up very efficiently. And this is probably a card that will fix Aquaforce for the long run. And yeah, I think this is the card that Aquaforce really, really needed, especially with some future support that we're going to get that might interact with this effect even better than we already have with the cards where we got access to. Now with Lanica done, we're going to the last nation, which is the Zoo Nation. And the first clan that we got is Mega Colony. And Mega Colony got Pelagian Mutant Deity Deperano. And Deperano is a very interesting card. It has a unique kind of playstyle, as it can disrupt your opponent's G-Zone and eliminate the amount of possibilities or options they have. But the problem is in Premium right now, the format is way too fast, and it gives actually way more value or way more advantage to your opponent than it actually takes away. This card is only good in a scenario where you can grind out the game for multiple stride turns and then actually hit them with this stride when it hurts them the most. But currently, it's probably not viable. It's probably not strong enough, or not the clan is probably not defensive enough to make this card good. So for that, this is for me a loser's card, because it just doesn't seem to work with the clan, if I'm gonna be very honest. Then for Mega Colony, we go to Great Nature, and Great Nature got a very unique stride as well, which is Omnia Science Dragon Chipichikam. And Chipichikam is, for me, an in-betweener stride. It's not just bad, because there is a niche this card actually fulfills. It has some interactions and some combo potential with very specific cards, but it also allows them to get to their Zoa turn a bit more consistently than they would have in other scenarios. And I think that's where the main value of this card lies. It's not going to be a Turbo 8 engine. It's not going to be a OTK turn finisher or something like that, or a resource engine. It's probably going to be just to have your GB free on a more consistent basis, so you can go into your Zoa even if you do not get to your heals or something like that. And I think that's where the value of Chipichikam will lies. And that's basically leaves it into the in-betweener slots. It's not just outright garbage like some other strides, as it has some use. And then with Great Nature done, we end up with the last stride, which is the one for Neo Nectar, as that is Entrancing Flower Princess Sandrine. And this for me is once again an in-betweener stride, as it is a interesting card as it allows you to play a standard plus build because they needed this stride if you wanted to play the Arsha build. But besides that, it's very awkward in your typical Nectar build. However, there is one interesting interaction here that might come up in the future and that might make this card a lot better than it actually is. Because this stride can be stridden on a stride, because it just looks if you and your opponent are both at grade 3 or greater. So that counts stride units as well. So what you can basically do is stride into your progenitor or megaloma and then stride into this thing. And that basically enables you to have free strides for the rest of the game without sacrificing your stride turn, which can be interesting depending on what type of build you're playing. But what also can happen is that if Nectar gets more stronger and interesting and powerful cards that interact with a stride, or they get a stride with a really powerful main phase act ability or an on-place effect, then you can activate those on-place effects, those main phase ability, get those advantage, and then go into this stride to have a more powerful pushing Vanguard attack in the battle phase. Which is really interesting if you think about it. But at the same time, it also allows you to accelerate your GB count. Not too sure if that's anything that Nectar wants to do, but it's a thing. So for now, I'm gonna give it the in-betweener slot, as it allows you to play the Arsha deck in premium, and it might have some niches to fill if you cannot stride in certain scenarios. But it could potentially have some future potential if we get better cards or strides that might interact with this particular pseudo-interaction of the card. But we have to wait and see what it's gonna be. So for now, it's just an in-betweener slot for me. So with the last clan tackled, we can basically build this list, which is actually pretty interesting. As you can see, a very equal divide between the absolute winners, in-betweeners, and losers categories. And last year when we did this video, there was a very much emphasis on the in-betweener slots before we had a retrospect video a year later that we did about, I believe, 2 months ago or maybe a month ago, where things shifted up a bit more higher in the winners category. We saw some more tops for more strides. But just on first glance, when we analyze this card, this set is looking to be a lot more balanced, a lot more fair to most of the clans. Because even though we have multiple divides and we have some losers and some in-betweeners and some absolute winners which really are good, even in the in-betweener slot, these cards aren't bad. These fill in roles for the clans that they lack. They do something for the clan that they actually misses. And even though we have got some losers that are really, really bad, the winners, absolute winners, and some of the in-betweeners are actually really, really good. And the overall value and just average card value is much higher than we got last year. So if we're gonna go from this list, I think it's gonna be a very good representation of what's gonna happen in premium, and it's gonna look like a very balanced format. So as you can see, everything is as it should be. Sazan and Storm Elemental Cyclone are gonna dominate the premium landscape and are gonna make everything Cray Elemental, because nobody wants to play some unique and interactive deck, because that's not a thing you want to do when playing a TCG. And we also got some support cards behind Sazan and Cyclone, as we got Barrigiran and Mulwark that will support this whole engine, but they know their place. They're not gonna take the spotlight from Sazan and Cyclone, as they know that they're just supporting cards and they're just a sidecast to make this engine as powerful and destructive as it can be, because it's time for Cray Elementals to rise. No longer will they be suppressed by mediocre skills, and they will take over premium. Ugh, I don't know what that was, but that didn't feel too good. So if nothing interrupts this format, these cards, then I think premium is looking to be very, very interesting and might be a really fun format to play once this set hits for the international side as well, as these strides, no matter where you are, maybe not in the losers category, will be really fun to play and makes your deck a lot more interesting to build decks around it or just pilot the deck in general. So let's hope nothing will screw this up and we can actually hopefully play with these particular strides and have some really fun and interesting games for premium for a whole year to come. But that's basically everything for me today. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of this video and all the ranking that I gave to these cards, as I'm really interested in what you guys think of these cards. So let me know in the comments down below all your thoughts and opinions. Are you agreeing with certain listing of certain cards in this list, or do you think that I went a bit too harsh on certain cards, or was I too lenient on certain cards? So let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. As always, this video has been brought to you by our lovely patrons over at patreon.com/VanguardInsider. You guys are amazing. If you want to support the channel or everything that's happening on the channel, then head over to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Timeleaf, and I see you guys in the next one.